value is great to an extent, but also it's like there's a reason why a Mercedes-Benz costs so much more than everything else.
This wide receiver room is awful right now.
It's very
bad.
For everybody that says first round wide receivers are bust, wait and get them on day 2. The hit rate is exponentially worse over the last 4 years of finding a starting wide receiver in day 2 than it is day 1.
This is the Buffalo Plus podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell, and we have made it, drum roll.
Not too loud.
Draft week.
Sorry, to draft week. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share if you enjoy our content. We're talking the Bills, first round draft strategy, maybe a later round pick that we want to hear the Bills call, as well as what do we expect? And if any team you think is going to do something insane coming up.
Oh, there'll be some dumb teams.
Yeah. There always is.
Dumb.
There always is, which just
Dumb.
makes it fun. All right, let's start with what do you want them to do, the Bills, Mike, versus what you think they will do?
All right. So as it's gotten closer to the draft, I have lost all patience, and I want to see them trade up in the top 10 and get a Dunze. That's what I want to see. I'm almost to your Mike Ditka thing of giving up the whole draft. But I see those kind of players, and I think the fit, and look, any of the top 3, but I think it's going to be very, very difficult to do it. But sometimes you say to yourself, like, it's not for a quarterback, but you have the quarterback.
Yeah.
It's for somebody who can really make a difference for this offense.
Yeah.
I trust the Bills in many other ways. I trust them to coach up defensive backs. They have excellent linebackers. Even on the D-line, while they still need more pass rush, I just trust them to find ways to still be a really good defense.
Yeah.
I don't trust this wide receiver room, and they are I'm sorry, Brandon, it is a glaring hole that you need a number 1 receiver.
Yeah, I thought that was, again, we kind of talked about it. Like it's a glaring hole. There's no other way to get around it, and they can spin it all they want. What I want to have happen and what I think are going to have happen have come. They've split.
So let's start with just want.
What do I want? I want a Dunze. Like that's
nailed it.
Thank you. That's
Good
what I
pick.
want. I think.
Nice job.
Yeah,
And he said it right.
Yeah, the salary cap isn't real. Trade draft capital isn't real. Just go up and get him. Just force the other team, and it's pretty simple. He's to me the most game changing while also like game altering, while also being as safe as I can see wide receiver. Like when Matt Miller talks about him being like a Jamar Chase comp, like that. Damn.
And a hard worker. Team guy.
Dog,
I know
dog, alpha, all of these things. He's a
not
true
heard,
X wide receiver.
Have you heard the negative on him?
No,
No.
I don't think he has any.
And that doesn't mean that's a guarantee, but not hearing any of that on him.
That says a lot too.
Yeah.
And we learned this today. He's named Rome because his dad loved the Roman Empire and essentially how much power that they had.
Yeah.
And that's why he's named Roma Dunze. So I think that's a fun fact, obviously.
And he said he thinks about the Roman Empire more than the average person.
Yeah.
He's asked about it, and yes, he does think about it.
He does think about it more. But when we did this exercise a couple weeks ago, you and I, Mike, you and me, Mike.
You and me.
You and me. And we talked about the Bills getting crazy, trading up. And I said a trade with 9 with Chicago and to go get that Washington receiver, Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
And then it felt playful and fun and all these things. Now I'm like, maybe it's not going to be Chicago, but I don't want to say we're all in agreement. But when you see the glaring need at wide receiver, you see the upside of a guy like a Dunze, what he could add to that offense, the weapon he could be. And I always think back to when Brandon Beane would talk about, Josh Allen and their fastball being his ability to have competent wide receivers and the Bills throwing the ball and using that to excel and take advantage of their opponents. And when you look at what they have right now, there is so much opportunity and so much need to have someone, if not obviously more than one. And yeah, Odunze just fits that
All right,
box.
Dan, this is the perfect time then to go in to what I know you wanted to talk about with top 10 top draft wide receivers.
Yeah, I texted the group. Was it again on Sunday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Very
I
excited.
was very excited to podcast. Maybe it even meant Saturday night. That I said I just can't wait. I can't wait for the podcast again. I listened to the Moving the Sticks podcast. It's Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah. Really smart guys. And they had talked about an article in The Athletic. Diana Rossini was part of it, and they had researched over the last 10 years the hit rate to bust rate of a wide receivers taken in the first round. And what they came up with was that 65% of the first round wide receivers were a bust. And they wanted to look into it and say, like, hey, like, well, maybe let's just go year by year and kind of look more into that. So I highly recommend going to listen to it. It's about a 12-minute conversation. I thought it was very enlightening because they went back and looked at it, because what we hear a lot about, guys, is just get a guy J2.
Yeah.
Just, hey, there's value in the bottom of the draft. Like, hey, you don't need to get a first round wide receiver. You don't have to. Look at this guy and they name, this person and that person. And you're like, okay. And they go back through it. So they left out the 2023 season because they thought that was still kind of an incomplete year. They're still trying to figure that out.
That's fair.
Not
Enough
data.
record,
Yeah. So 2022, the first round draft picks, they went on hit or miss. And they looked at Drake London, hit. Garrett Wilson, hit. Chris Olave, hit. Jameson Williams, close, trending in the right direction. He's had injuries. He's had the suspension. Jahan Dotson, trending in the right way. And Treylon Burks, who is a complete miss up to this point. And so they said, well, that's 3 home runs, a guy that's trending in the right direction, and Dodson and Williams, who has flashed at the same time. So you'd say it's pretty good success at hitting those guys in the first round.
Right. All I was going to add to that is what makes those guys really impressive. Drake London was playing for the Falcons.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson was playing with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Chris Olave was playing in that mess of a Saints offense. Yeah. Jahan Dotson, in fairness to him, he had some moments in Washington, and Treylon Burks, I don't know what the Titans have been doing in terms of the success. Jameson Williams is the one that stands out a little bit because Detroit had a really good offense.
Yeah.
But he was all over the place.
Yes.
I still think he's got a nice upside to him.
Yeah.
But I love when guys outplay their quarterback and outplay their offense.
Absolutely. No question. So they went to the day 2 guys where they're like, hey, again, we hear about that a lot. You don't need to take a wide receiver. Don't trade up. There's value in the second round. It's a deep wide receiver class, right? We hear that it's a deep wide receiver class. Day 2 of 2022, the wide receivers taken. Christian Watson. We're still trying to figure it out.
I think he's been helped by the better play of the quarterback later in the year.
Okay, so after that, Wan'Dale Robinson, John Mechie, Tyquan Thornton, George Pickens, Alex Pierce, Sky Moore. Do any of those guys excite you at all?
The only one that stands out is Sky Moore because he was playing with Patrick Mahomes.
And has been a disappointment.
Right. That's what I'm saying is the rest of them, at least I would say, George Pickens.
Pickens is the other one.
Yeah, that would be the one.
Tyquan Thornton playing in New England. Bad quarterback play. John Mechie's interesting with the Texans.
Cancer.
Yeah. Yes,
he missed the whole season because of cancer.
Wan'Dale Robinson, they had no quarterback and nobody around him. I'm not saying these guys can't play. They needed to be elevated by the quarterback, and that's not there. Doesn't mean they're busts, but you're worried. Every one of those teams, except maybe the Steelers, is worried about that guy.
And then you finished the third round, Jalen Tolbert, David Bell, Danny Gray.
Ooh.
Again, this thought that, hey, this guy was a 3rd round pick. Like, hey, Tyreek Hill was a 5th, 6th round pick. Like, you be careful when you start thinking too much about you can get these guys on day 2 because they went into the 2021 draft. 1st round wide receivers, Jamar Chase, home run. Jalen Waddle, home run. Devonta Smith just got paid, very successful. And then you have 2 swing and misses with Kadarius Toney and Rashad Bateman. Okay.
And they stand out as rarities to go. I mean, listen, if you're on the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not saying you got to be a superstar, but he was a failure. That's on Kadarius Toney. They picked the wrong guy. because it hasn't worked. I mean,
Well,
he did-
Tony was the Giants.
right, but I'm saying they ended up they were with the Giants, and then they came to Kansas City and was
Correct.
failing in Kansas City.
Correct.
Did catch the game-winning
Yeah.
touchdown in the Super Bowl.
That,
But yes, but the
But
Giants
yes,
were
you have-
Giants were also a bad organization.
absolutely.
And in Bateman, and then there's the Moore and Moore.
So you had
Elijah and Rondell.
Yeah, so day 2 of the 2021 draft, Elijah Moore, Rondell Moore, Dwayne Eskridge, Tutu Atwell, Terrence Marshall. Go to the 3rd round, Josh Palmer, De'Ami Brown, Amari Rogers, Nico Collins,
right.
and
Yeah.
Anthony Schwartz.
Okay.
So for everybody that wants to say, and we'll get it. We will understand in the heat of the moment when the Bills take a wide receiver or somebody takes a wide receiver in day 2 and you go, I can't believe that guy. And then take a look back in 2 years and go, has he played?
Yeah.
What teams? If you want to talk about Tutu Atwell, like you want to talk
Yeah.
about some of these guys where everybody wants to find Puka Nacua.
I was to say, just wait till the 5th round.
Well,
there
is something to be said for what Jenna just said, because you're taking a flyer in the 5th round.
Yep.
Not hoping that the 2nd or 3rd round guy is going to make up for what you didn't get in the 1st.
Yeah.
Once you take the receiver in the 1st, Beane, go flyer as much as you want. Take a 4th rounder, a 5th rounder, a 7th rounder, because then you're saying maybe we catch that.
Yeah.
But this wide receiver room is awful right now.
It's very
It is
bad.
bad. I wonder though, Dan, how much you think Brandon Beane's perspective of like, okay, well, this guy's going to play with Josh Allen and Josh Allen will elevate everyone's game. Do you think that comes into his mind? Because I would imagine like Sean McDermott coaching the defensive backs, all this stuff like, all right, we got a guy, but I can coach him up. We got a guy, Josh Allen can make him better.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that's a little bit of, I think that's part of trading Stephon Diggs away.
It's also a mistake.
I agree.
Yes.
Because we've talked about this.
Yes.
Where you act like any wide receiver that has a pulse that gets around a all-pro caliber quarterback turns into an all-pro wide receiver. And it's just not true.
It's like we talked about the Chiefs.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling didn't all of a sudden become a great wide receiver with Patrick Mahomes. It's not that simple.
That's why they move on from these guys.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Chiefs know they won with great coaching, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce,
in the playoffs.
defense, Spagnuolo.
Mhm.
Now, Rashee Rice was pretty good for them.
Yep.
But everybody else is just, and they are going to
Yeah.
absolutely be in the market for a receiver.
And I just want to
Yes.
finish. I just want to finish the exercise they did on the Move the Sticks podcast because I thought it was, again, really worth listening. 2019, there was only one wide receiver taken in the 1st round. It was by Baltimore.
Baltimore always takes receivers.
Yeah, it was Hollywood Brown. He was the only wide receiver taken in the 1st round. In 2020, that was the loaded wide receiver class. They couldn't believe it, right? Henry Ruggs.
Yeah.
Omit him from
Right.
this
It's hard
exercise.
it's hard to judge him.
Jerry Jeudy. Tough because he didn't excel in Denver, but he just got paid a big contract. So it is kind of weird. You're on your 2nd team. I'd consider him a miss. CeeDee Lamb, home
Big
run.
hit. Yeah.
Jalen Reagor, big miss.
Bust. Yeah.
Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. Then this is where it gets somewhat tricky. The first 2 picks of round 2 of the 2020 draft were T. Higgins and Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
Those are hits. Okay, so but again, those are the first picks of the 2nd round.
So it's essentially the end of the 1st round.
In my opinion, because then you have Laviska Shenault, KJ Hamler, Chase Claypool, Van Jefferson, Denzel Mims, 3rd round, Antonio Gibson, Lynn Bowden, Brian Edwards, Devin Duvernay.
It's almost become like quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because if you don't find them real early, somebody always takes the flyer. Lamar was a good example, end of the round, but an aberration, not the norm. And then
Exceptions.
the guys,
Yeah,
and then the
average.
guys, that's what I
Same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The guys you take in the 2nd round, everybody would always point to Drew Brees was a 2nd round pick.
Well, how about this for you? Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Just you can find quarterbacks the last pick of the draft. It's that
Yeah, like
simple.
that's-
That's not, again, what my big point has always been of trading up in the top 10 has been, guys, is I want to fish where the big fish are. That doesn't mean you can't hook a big 18-inch bass in some little random spot, but I want to fish where the fish are. I want
Have
to
you
fish.
ever caught?
I have never caught a single fish in my life.
Really?
One.
Yeah, I did.
And then I hooked my brother-in-law trying to get it off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Power.
I was on one of those big boats in Cape Cod,
Oh yeah.
and we were all
You
on
go
there.
fishing a lot.
And
Oh,
I'm
I like it.
taking, and my mother-in-law actually found a guy to help her, and the guy was great, and she was just reeling in fish after fish, and I was like a dope sitting there. I did catch a few. They were not record-setting fish.
That's fantastic.
So that was the end of that. No, go ahead.
I think an important note when you talked about those second round guys that hit early on, those are beginning of the second
Yeah.
round. I think it is important to note that where the Bills stand right now in the second round, that's at 60.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
you're looking at 34, 35,
Yeah.
36, not waiting all the way to the end, essentially, of the second
Now
round.
it does leave them the option of saying, if you have a mix of players there and somebody wants to come up, do you then get yourself into the early second round, depending on how you look at it? Like,
I just want to say, for everybody that says first round wide receivers are bust, wait and get them on day 2. The hit rate is exponentially worse over the last 4 years of finding a starting wide
Yes.
receiver in day 2 than it is day 1. So don't get all of a sudden think of when they draft that guy in the second round, go, Bill's got to steal.
And
Historically, it's probably not.
And I want to emphasize that the Bills are in need of a 1, and you could make an argument a 2.
2A, yep.
Okay. Curtis Samuel has 317 catches in his NFL career for 3,383 yards. Neither of those numbers is in the top 50 of active players.
Is that bad?
Well, it's when you look at how long players are in the league, he came into the league in 2018.
I think so, yeah.
So that's a decent, amount of time. The rest of the Bills roster, by far, Mac Hollins has the most catches, 131.
Wow.
Shakir's a new player. KJ Hamler's got 42 catches. Andy Isabella, 33
Justin
catches.
Shorter.
Justin Shorter has none.
Thank you, Jenna.
Um,
Check.
Yeah.
Was
Start
mentioned.
over the
Yeah.
So when you look at this wide receiver room, go ahead. I want to read your comments now. The Bills have I'd say, arguably, at the moment, I'll say bottom third. It might be a bottom 5
I agree.
wide receiver room.
I'd say bottom 5. It's probably bottom 10 if you want to include Kincaid. If you
I'm
want
just talking wide receiver.
wide
here.
receivers, it's got to be one of the 5 worst.
Right. Doesn't mean it can't change a lot. I think it's still going to change a lot. But if you're kidding yourself, if you don't think, and listen, as good as Kincaid was last year, I think he's going to be even better this year. He's still a tight end. It's not, he is not a dynamic, game-changing player. What Diggs used to be for the Bills.
Correct.
Okay. So stop kidding yourself. We hope Khalil Shakir, for the Bills' sake, becomes that guy. But we just had 2 years of waiting for Gabe Davis to do that. He didn't. There was no guarantee. He's shown a lot of signs, Jenna, of being really good. But
you don't know.
I could use Dan's line about hope or whatever, but
Yeah.
Well,
also just because a player is good, progress is not always linear.
Yep.
You can, with extra pressure, maybe take a step back. Obviously, you're hoping and projecting that he continues to take those steps forward, but you never know. Dan, to support what you were talking about earlier, you did a really great video with Matt Miller of ESPN. He's a draft analyst, and he talked about how we say there's so much depth in this wide receiver class, but he made the analogy that it's like a teeter-totter, where there's so much talent and then it kind of drops off.
Yep.
So I think that is also something that we talk so much about. Maybe we trade back, you can get more value, all that stuff. Value is great to an extent, but also it's like there's a reason why a Mercedes-Benz costs so much more than everything else.
value is like flexibility. What's the other phrase we use?
Versatility.
Versatility.
I don't want it
It's
to
good
be
to have.
I don't want it to be your best trait.
Yeah.
No, you want your left tackle to be a left tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He ain't
Yeah.
playing any other place.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
want my third baseman also being a great second and shortstop. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I want him to be a great third baseman.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, is that when they're drafting at 60, whether or not what they do in the first round, we can talk about what we think, coming up a little bit, but just the fact of at 60, it could be the 11th or 12th best wide receiver left. I mean, there could be 7 that could go before the Bills at 28 or before 28. Let's just say that. Whoever's picking at 28, I think 7 wide receivers could be off the board by then.
Yeah.
No question.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and
Cut you off.
there is a series of receivers who are going to be on the board when the Bills pick at 28. I'm not telling them to be dumb and just take them because you feel
that's
stuck.
my fear.
But there is a place they have the assets to move up in the second round if they need to.
Oh.
So in terms of saying, yes, either move back or move up. If you took a defensive end in the first round, but then moved up in the second round.
We have booze on the hotkeys.
I mean, if you're going to take, Leggett or McConkey or one of these guys, you may very well be able to feel comfortable either moving up in the second, taking the best defensive end you can get.
I see what you're saying.
And then moving up, as opposed to just moving back and then waiting at 60 for either one of those positions.
I see what you're saying.
So to have 2 picks in the top 37
40,
or top 40.
I want 1 pick in the top 15.
So do I.
I don't give a.
I got a target for them now too.
I don't give a bleep about 60. I don't. I don't give. I don't really care about next year's first. I really don't.
Like the future Dan problem.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to do this.
Yeah, we're gonna take draft week off.
Yeah, I just have. I have my worries that other teams have more ammo to go up ahead of the Bills when the run on wide receiver starts.
I think that's fair.
And the Bills could be looking at 28 going, do we have a first round grade on Ladd McConkey? I think that's what they could be looking at, because I think at 28, I think the Chiefs could jump them. I think that Pittsburgh, Indy, a lot of these teams that need a wide receiver, maybe it's not their biggest need, take wide receivers, and the Bills are caught without enough ammunition and without wanting to put too much on the credit card. Like he said, he's just finally paid off his debts or is paying off the debts. Is he going to want to spend more draft capital in the future when he's just worked so hard to get it back to level floor? That's my fear.
I feel like you keep swinging though.
I agree.
Like we've seen you traded the first round pick to get Stephon Diggs.
Trade a first round pick and go get Brandon Ayuk.
I do feel like it's important to note it is smokescreen season. We heard from Beane last week. He literally said that wide receiver is not a glaring hole. Like that's cute, but that's not the case.
I mean, the reality is, as we were saying, when he says that, can you picture, when you watch the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner looks at his other guys on the staff and he goes, what's that GM's name in Jacksonville? Like, can you imagine? First of all, he leaves the room after he makes the first pick or makes the trade.
So you like the movie?
It's funny because I know some people that were in it, and so do Bills fans. But you think up to yourself, like, you have to be ready for anything that can happen in this draft. Mm-hmm. And they're ready for it. So
because they're in the building.
But I'm sitting there thinking, you cannot.
So annoying.
Look, if they take a receiver too early, like if they take him at 28, that they think they could have gotten him at 34.
Yep.
Part of me just says, take him at 28. Take him at 28. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it was like
when I say 34, like if you're going to trade back, because there is teams to trade back with. So that's the only thing I'm sitting there thinking, like, you cannot be waiting until the 60th pick of the draft to take a wide receiver. Cannot do it with this current roster.
I don't expect that to be the case.
By the way, the other thing I did was,
that's my fear.
I looked at playoff.
I firmly don't believe that's going to be the
playoff
case.
History for the Bills' current wide receivers. How many catches for all of them combined?
For all of them combined?
Well, I won't even tell you.
Are we saying Josh Allen's tenure or like?
No, in their careers. The players who are wide
careers?
receivers, and this includes all of them. In fact, I will tell you, the entire group has 16 catches.
Wow.
Is that bad?
How many does Khalil Shakir have of those?
How many do you think he has?
6. No, 7.
I was going to say, I might go a little higher than that.
15.
Wow.
in 2 years.
Oh,
So
I was factoring in Kincaid.
Nope.
My brain
15.
melted for
He
a
has
second.
15. Mac Hollins has 1.
Attaboy, Mac.
Curtis Samuel's never played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Mac, and that was it for Mac.
How many for a shorter?
None so far, but it'll be.
what if he absolutely hits though?
It would be fantastic. Touchdowns.
Can you imagine?
I'm going to go back. If that happens, I'm going to spend a week going back in every single one of these pods and clipping it.
Touchdowns for current wide receivers in the
See.
playoffs.
I mean, well, you can't. None from Curtis Samuel, and then Shakir had was it 2?
Very
Look
good.
at you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
2. By the way, and I want to say this to Bills fans: if you are, again, I'm addressing this directly. If this was the wide receiver room, well, it kind of is for the Patriots. Not much different. But for the Jets or the Dolphins, you would be laughing at them. You would say, look at this wide receiver
That's
room.
actually fair.
100%.
And this is not about these individual guys, but we're talking about
Well, you're asking them to play over their skis.
that they now in
Look
Curtis
like-
Samuel's case, I do think he's never had a very good quarterback,
Sure.
at least a little bit of Cam when he started.
But
I think he can be better.
correct. But if you put Khalil Shakir right now on 17 other teams, he's maybe their third best wide receiver.
He's still a second. It could be second on some teams.
Yeah, I just think that's.
But but again, it's asking every one of them to do more than they've ever done in their career.
yes, and that's
so you
and
got
that's-
to
every
fill
one of
from the
them.
top. Everyone,
Yeah.
you got to fill from the top.
And I got a buddy who played college football in the ACC, and just the fact he used to talk about exceptions. And he said one of his coaches, when they were going through the recruiting process, quoted Bill Parcells.
Oh yeah.
And the quote was, keep making exceptions, and the next thing you know, you'll have a team full of exceptions. So if you keep sitting there and saying, I read Shio Kapadia did another great article about like the 6 things every GM needs to avoid. And one of the things was thinking that your guy is different. There is so much metrics and data, and they track every first round pick, and whether it's an offensive tackle's arm length.
That's a perfect example.
They track quarterbacks' hand sizes. And if you think this guy's different, historically, he's probably not different. So here, an example for me is Xavier Worthy. Like, everybody says he's so thin. And like, you can have a guy like Devonta Smith be successful. I think Devonta Smith is the exception.
Oh yeah.
He is not the norm for a wide receiver playing at that size. And if you constantly think like these guys it's an exception. This guy's an exception. Like, no, you're going to end up with a bunch of guys that are in over their heads because they don't fit what they need to be.
I hear you. The general ruling of like, you can't make an exception for everyone. I just feel like for the Bills, like Josh Allen is kind of the exception, because coming out, people were like, there's no way
Bingo.
that he is going to be.
And all the other ones,
100%.
basically all the other ones have failed.
100%.
essentially.
Yeah.
Bills fans should know this more than anybody. It's a great point. Josh is an exception.
Yes.
He is a quarterback that has become more accurate from his college days to the NFL. That is an exception. That is not the norm. Brock Purdy and Josh Allen are exceptions.
Yeah.
That's it. So how many exceptions are you allowed to have on your roster? I guess I would ask Bills fans.
That's fair.
Because otherwise, get guys that make, like I said, I love AD Mitchell.
See, but here's my thing is I look at a guy like Tremaine Edmonds who had all the intangibles.
What's wrong with Tremaine?
I mean, Tremaine's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine. I
Not a
just feel
bust.
like no, he's not. He's not a bust, but I also feel like what you were expecting to get in a first round guy, I guess, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel
He's
like you
not-
always wanted him to take that next step.
Absolutely.
Though. And just because you are physically gifted in some ways doesn't mean like you're going to instinctively get the other things.
yeah.
It's so hard, but this is the thing. You're projecting so much and it's very hard. That's very hard to do.
Well, you err on the side of the physical traits most of the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can be fortunate in that case. I just think that the need is so great at this position, specifically
Oh,
the
Mike,
wide
it's not a
receiver
glaring
position.
hole.
Yeah. I mean, so that's why I'm saying
Not a
this.
glaring
Can't
hole.
you just see like Joe Douglas, they're all sitting there going, oh no, what the Bills are going to do. They don't need. I mean, the one position everybody's saying, well, they're not drafting a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
just look at them. Like you even said, would they ever take an offensive tackle? I don't think this is the year they would do it. But they have Dion and Spencer Brown. I'm saying there's certain things, but sometimes teams prioritize those things and say, this guy could play guard for us and move to tackle. Like there's
Yeah.
certain things. And you're talking about filling the roster here.
Yeah.
We're not even, my point is fill it from the top. So,
Okay, wait. So we talked about what we want them
Yeah.
to do. What do you think they actually will do on Thursday night in the first round? Dan, I'll start with you.
I've been going through like the stages of grief and acceptance.
okay.
Wow.
I want to trade up into the top 10.
Bargaining.
Yeah. I want to trade up in the top 10. The more I'm coming to it, I know the Bills, I think they believe that Josh can turn
Water into wine.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And to that, I say Gabe Davis didn't pan out. Like to that, I'd say Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like Patrick Mahomes didn't make Marquez Valdez-Scantling into a guy. I think that a bunch of other teams will be more aggressive than the Bills because I think out of all of the years, while I know Beane loves to trade up, I just see him being a little bit more conservative this year. That just has been his approach through this offseason. I don't know if he then puts all of his chips in that he just got back and saved and pushes them back into the middle to make a pick.
If he's anything like me, yeah.
I would too.
Paid off my credit card bill.
Yeah.
Let's slam that.
Let's
bee
go
down.
shopping.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. And so my thing, it's kind of my fear. I think that the Bills get leapfrogged by a bunch of teams. I think that the Chiefs, again, teams that have more ammo, get ahead of the Bills. The Bills are kind of stuck at 28. Is this kind of what I see? And they take cornerback Cooper DeJean from Iowa.
Wow. That I was not expecting.
All right. We're going to have a bet on that.
Is that who
I
you're
think
taking?
that-
Okay.
I hope they take.
Right.
I hope they would take Brian Thomas. They would trade up for Brian Thomas or trade up for AD Mitchell because I don't think either of them are there at 28. If they are there at 28, I think they take Cooper DeJean.
So I will say this, since it's an unfair bet, I'm betting you, I'll give you a case of whatever beer you want to
Okay.
a 6-pack of whatever beer I want, that they do not take Cooper DeJean in the first round.
Okay, what happens if he's off the board before the Bills?
Bets off.
Okay.
If he's on the board
And
they
the Bills
take him,
are at 28.
you pick the beer. I don't care what it is. You get a case.
Wow. That's the
'Cause-
first wager of the Buffalo Plus era.
Yes. You get a case. I get a 6-pack because it's one guy in the whole draft. It'd be hard to make that
What's your
even.
beer?
Jenny Light. We'll just keep it simple.
I was going to say, I figured. as much.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't pick whatever you want.
Not Jenny Light.
He
Not a
loves it.
sponsor.
I was just
Not a
saying.
sponsor. Wish it was.
But it could be.
But wish it was. They love Iowa guys.
They do.
Small town, versatile, could play safety, can play corner.
That's why you worry about it. Too versatile for me for the first round. But
He's
we'll
a
see.
freak. He's a freak.
Okay.
All right, Michael, what are you doing?
All right. So I think, honestly, I said I have them trading up to 22 with the Eagles. And now, who knows what Howie, he loves to move up as much as Beane does. But I see them, if Brian Thomas gets close to them, I do see them making a move. And it would be fitting to use that Minnesota number 2 that you got for Diggs to go get your next guy. That is a very valuable pick. That is a high 2 in most people's mind for next year. And they'd still have the 1 and the 2 if they move up. Go ahead.
We were talking about this before. Brian Thomas may be the most tough to project. I've seen him as high as 12. I've seen him at 28.
I've seen him at 10. The Jets taking him at 10.
Wow.
Yes.
Just wild to think about. Again,
Because
The
his
range.
is less
when do you pull the trigger?
where he was in the LSU offense.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a projection, but the physical skills
Oh, he's
are
freak. I love him.
absolutely there.
That's
And
my
I
dream.
think he fits. I think
Brian
he fits
Thomas?
for them
Brian Thomas is my dream for the Bills. I
Well-
would be very happy with.
outside of a Dunze.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I
that's-
was like, I don't think you're
that's.
characterizing
I mean,
that
that's.
right. A Dunze is your dream, but if you shoot for the stars and you land
Dunze
amongst
is a brunette.
No comment.
Yes, yeah.
Brian Thomas
is a blonde.
Or
It's
no,
a
you're-
blonde.
Yes,
It's a blonde.
exactly.
But
This all makes
LSU
sense.
is yellow.
Yes,
Yeah, that's it.
fair.
That's it.
What is it? Yeah. So if you shoot for the moon
Yeah.
and you land amongst the stars, you'll get Brian Thomas.
Yeah. And then I'll take AD Mitchell as a consolation.
Yeah.
and I think they end up with Cooper DeJean, who visited them for a top 30 visit.
Yes.
Now
They did 30.
Yeah.
Top 30 visits.
I will say, be prepared if it gets to 28 and there's nobody that they love. There will be teams like I think Washington, I think even Denver. There's going to be teams looking to trade up. That Bo Nix is out there unless one of these teams takes him early. That you would be so ticked off to watch the whole first round, no pick, moving back to early in the second and taking a wide receiver. Then I could see. I'm telling you, it could happen.
It'd be a really easy day for us.
Yeah.
Up in Buffalo. We'd be out
Could
there,
you imagine, like,
we'd be out there chilling and cracking a beer and being like, that was
Actually, nothing would change. You just wouldn't be talking about a player.
yeah,
You'd still have to be working.
that's true. But like, it'd be way less intense.
I'm just
our
telling
post round 1 draft recap would be real short video on the
you
channel.
would be ripping them because the Chiefs traded ahead of them.
Facts.
yeah.
And other wide
We'd
receivers
be like, what are they
gone.
doing?
Yeah.
Dan would have
Yeah.
to make another pod the next day
Yep.
because he's
I
like,
did.
last year.
I just didn't like Dalton Kincaid because I was like, just think of him as a wide receiver. It's like you drafted a slow white wide receiver.
So what if you trade up in the second round and you take Cooper DeJean in the first and Ladd McConkey in the second?
It'd be wild.
That would be wild. I think
I love Javon Baker at 60. I'll say that. I love
No,
Javon
you've already
Baker.
gotten rid of the 6th. You said you don't care about the 60th pick.
If it gets me my brunette,
So Javon Baker may be one of those guys on your list when you look back at the draft,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But he's not a guy that's even been projected. That's where he's sort of been. So
Yeah.
transferred from
Georgia
to UCF,
UCF.
right? Yeah. Where your favorite receiver was from.
got his jersey hanging behind me. It's not. If this is your first time coming to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. What if the Rams did the hilarious thing and traded out of the first round? And the Bills traded up with them
Hey, look,
to 19. Or they switched or
I
swapped.
honestly, I also could see the Rams as being one of those teams that takes a flyer on a quarterback later.
Mhm.
I mean, if Carson Wentz is their backup, I mean, they're just filling holes, until they get a guy.
Yeah.
They could. There's nothing saying they could. They could also go defensive end, defensive line. I mean, there's a lot of teams. This draft has a series of guys on the line of scrimmage, like Murphy. What's the kid from Latu? You're talking about players like that. That there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in. And then there's a series of receivers, and there's a series of offensive linemen. What are you laughing about?
Not you.
No.
Wait, my pick. I didn't say my pick. So they traded up for a bit. They traded up 2 spots for Dalton Kincaid. Traded up a little bit to get Kyer Elam. I literally like my brain. Beane has traded up 4 times in 5 drafts.
That
I
is
see
correct.
them trading up a little bit. I think I had it before being with the Cowboys at 24 or even.
There are going to be a lot of people that want that 24th pick.
I agree.
Yeah. And the Cowboys.
Or 22 with the Eagles.
Yeah, the Cowboys need extra picks, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like.
But you look at the guys
Channel-
who would be there.
Who would Josh Allen want? So Josh Allen told us last week that before the draft last year, he texted Beane on draft day and just texted him Dalton Kincaid.
Okay, so I think that played out as they showed him Dalton Kincaid. He looked at a lot of Dalton Kincaid and then said, "Go, oh, yeah, I like Dalton Kincaid."
Yeah, I'm not saying he was like.
Yes, that's what I mean.
But
yes.
I'm imagining they're showing him like 3 to 4 players, and then he'll probably do the same thing of like the text of who.
Okay, so in my list for those guys that will be available somewhere near them is Justin Thomas, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier
Brian
Worthy,
Thomas.
Brian Thomas. Justin Thomas, is the golfer.
I was like,
A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Xavier Leggett.
I do like A.D. Mitchell.
A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah.
A.D.
At
Mitchell.
28,
I'm a little worried about Leggett. I know a lot of people like him. I know that South Carolina didn't have a quarterback for most of his career. Great accent, great guy. Just doesn't, to me, he doesn't change the game.
Yeah.
That's fair. Or maybe not, but
I would have liked Leggett if Diggs was still on the roster.
that's fair.
Like I think they would have complemented each other well.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't think Leggett doesn't bring enough sizzle. I think that there's enough.
What about Xavier Worthy? That speed.
He's like 145 pounds.
Yeah.
That's fair.
It's just,
Again,
could he be that exception?
Deshaun Jackson is that exception. Small, incredibly fast. Exception.
Be wary of the exception. And when
Yeah.
you're talking to your friends on draft night, remind them, Bill Parcells said, keep making exceptions, and the next thing you know, you'll have a team full of exceptions.
How about Jerzon?
I don't think that's as like damning as you think it is.
It ain't a compliment.
I just don't think it's as damning as like.
I think it is. I think there are times when teams, you could do that 5 times. 5 times is too many.
Yeah.
Once, maybe twice.
And you have to hit. Like, again.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on this draft.
You make your money. Again, to your point, Mike. You swing and miss in round 5, Justin Shorter, another reference. If you swing and miss, it's fine. It's a 5th round pick. Nobody's going to go back to 2024 and go, can't believe being drafted this guy in the 5th round.
It's when you look at the
take a
overall
shot.
picks. The time you notice that is when you see 2 guys in front of them or right behind them that you go, oh my God, they could have had this guy. Those teams took a flyer too.
Yeah, that's fair.
Jerzon Newton too. Defensive tackle, Illinois.
Gosh.
They could do it.
Cooper DeJean.
Okay. So Cooper DeJean.
That's who
Brian
I think
Thomas.
I want. What I want is separate.
I think A.D. Mitchell.
I'm with, if they stay at 28, I think A.D. Mitchell could be their guy.
I don't think Mitchell gets to 28.
That's why I have them moving up a bit.
That leads into
Michael
teams.
said if you stay at 28. I'm yelling at him, not at you.
Feels like you're yelling at me.
That's like you did a Mike. I yell at them for things they didn't say.
We'll read a text to Mike and he'll be like, well, what do you mean? What about this? And it's like,
no,
I'm
it's
just
not
reading
even a text. It's a tweet.
Yes.
That somebody will read it and he'll go, well, Jenna, that's just stupid. I didn't write it.
You mean like the guy tweeting trade Brandon Ayuk for the 4th pick and have the Niners take Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there with the 4th pick, why would you not just take Marvin Harrison Jr. on a rookie contract? But people throw that. So I'm not mad at you guys for that.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yes.
Okay. A name of a guy. Name a guy. Sorry. Someone that a name you want to hear in the later
He's
round.
in my mock draft. Isaac Garendo, Louisville. I got him at 144. Was at Wisconsin. Fastest guy at the combine for the running back position. Has patience as a runner. And you know who loves him? Baldy loves him. Brian Baldinger loves him. Has him as one of his sleepers in the draft. I think he's got size. He's 6 feet, 222. I talked about a little bit in the mock draft. And he does run. It's a rare thing to see with a back. He has speed, but he runs with patience. And I think in a later round like that, that's the kind of guy that would be a good complement to James Cook.
Okay. Mike McShay there.
Look at
just
that.
Dropped that was a full on quick hit on ESPN.
You got it.
He's more of a Mel Kiper.
Yes. Take Isaac. I'm not doing Mike Kiper.
Daniel.
Flournoy. The wide receiver out of Southeast Missouri.
One of those directional schools.
Yeah, crazy story. The Bills brought him in on a 30 visit.
Mm-hmm.
Just a guy that I would take a shot on in day 3.
Yeah.
I think it's worth taking a shot in day 3. A guy that has battled some injuries, has played in every single lower level that you could play in besides, D1 football. I'd take a shot at him because a lot of his skills, I think, translate, and he tore it up at the Senior Bowl. That was when he started to get all the attention.
Yeah.
I'll take a shot on him again.
And he physically has the traits of a higher draft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give me a wide receiver, trade up, get a wide receiver in the 1st round if you can, and then give me Flournoy in day 3.
Yeah.
Okay. I liked him. I also like Jermaine Burton out of Alabama. He's
Yeah.
about 6 foot, but
Yeah.
he's got some quick speed, that type of stuff, strong.
Yak.
Yak.
He's also, again, I read some things. I don't know the specifics of it. There was some off the field concerns
Yes.
with him,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's just out there. Guys drop again in a later round. It's less of a
Yes, I agree.
circumstance for a team to take a flyer.
Yeah. Okay. Team we think that's going to do something crazy in round 1.
I don't know if it's crazy, but I think Denver is one of the dumb organizations in the NFL
Just trade
right
for
now.
Zach Wilson.
Because Zach Wilson,
Juggernaut.
Yeah.
one of Dan's favorite players in the NFL, Jared Stidham. Remember when he was the choice of all the Patriots? Stidham looks good.
Oh, yeah.
That Stidham looks
The
good.
reports coming out.
Oh, man, he looks
Got the
good.
respect of his teammates. This guy said it.
Yeah. And who's their and then they have
Ben
Ben
DiNucci.
DiNucci.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's their
Defenses
quarterback
fear
room.
him.
They're sitting there at 12. This year is a terrible year for them. They could, if they were smart, I don't think they're going to sacrifice even more draft capital that they've already given up for Russell Wilson. They would trade back. Not necessarily a terrible place for Beane to be looking if he wants to move up.
That was
it's
my
a
first.
lot.
That was why I talked to Matt Miller.
Yeah, not a bad place. Just feel like they do some weird stuff. You look at guys like Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix. I think teams are going to draft him too early. I think it's going to be after the first couple of quarterbacks are gone. They just feel like they got to make a move. So I just think Denver's made so many dumb moves. They could do something off the board here a little bit.
Yeah.
The smart move for them is probably to trade back.
Yeah, I think talk about poorly run franchises and organizations. I feel like Jacksonville is always in the loop to do something stupid. And the team that I think could ruin some. It's nothing new. I think the Chiefs can ruin the Bills.
Yeah. I was thinking of that.
They've got more. That's the team that I'm thinking of that has more ammunition. They have the 3rd round pick this year. They're going to get a comp pick next year for Snead. They're going to. They have more cards in their deck right now to get to Dallas, to get to Denver if they need a wide receiver.
It just yes, a little bit has been their history. I don't know. You're right. They might do that.
McDuffie, they
jumped
swooped
up.
him.
Yeah, I agree, Dan.
That's tough.
You got a dumb team?
That's tough when you have to agree with me.
I say dumb team.
No,
not
I
necessarily
was-
dumb. It's usually when they do something strange that can either
Outlandish.
help or hurt.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I mean, I figured I agree with you, Dan. I figured it would be something like the Chiefs. And I shouldn't say crazy, but just like you kind of talked about, they had the capital to kind of move up and go where they wanted to. Trent McDuffie is a great example of last year, them kind of swooping 2 years ago, swooping in and taking a guy that you think the Bills really would have wanted. So, man, could have had Trent McDuffie rather than.
So do you have a team?
I was saying the Chiefs.
Oh, you were saying the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So you're saying is them to move up. And the other one is the
I was
the
saying,
Giants.
You could
I don't
say
love
the
what
Giants.
I don't love what the Giants have done. I'm Joe Shane off the bean tree here, but man, they're sitting there. I hope they enjoyed a couple of wins down the stretch. Boy, it would have been nice for them to be in the top to get a quarterback. I don't know if they're ready to step up and go get one. You have a feeling they're going to just ride this thing again.
What do you think about the Saints?
Well, they always do they do a lot of dumb stuff. That's true. You never know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And when I say this, it's like usually
They're
what
at
you
14.
want. You want a team like that to take a player that, I mean, it's hard. The Bills are at 28. We've talked about it. It's a terrible spot to be.
I remember we were in Nashville. No, was it Nashville? Daniel Jones.
The whole room was like,
The whole room.
Whoa.
We were in the auxiliary media tent, and the Giants picked Daniel Jones, and people were flat out screaming and laughing.
yeah. Yeah.
We were all like, "Oh my god!"
But they've stuck with him again. This will
Yeah.
be year 3. Whew. I don't know. And New England, who knows what New England's going to do?
Yeah.
Supposedly now they're looking to trade back. Man, you got to get a quarterback at some point. So I don't know. It'll be the division itself is going to be really interesting.
Yep.
Mostly with the Jets sitting there at 10.
The Jets, I think, will.
They need offensive line too.
They do.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
The Bears, though, maybe move back.
Yeah. Unless a
And-
Dunze is sitting there, they're going to take him.
Yeah.
As a
All right.
tear falls from Dan Fates' face.
Yeah.
Okay. That's we're gonna have plenty more draft coverage. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, as well
Draft
as
show
share.
Thursday.
We have our
Yes.
draft show on Thursday at 7:30.
We'll be up there.
In Orchard Park?
People get mad. It's not up. It's over. It's
Who gets mad?
people will be like, Orchard Park is not up. I've had people email me that.
Really?
Yeah. I get a lot of emails.
You do.
Were you wearing all your makeup when you did that?
Yes. So we'll have the show on Thursday. Then we'll have a recap of what the Bills did in the first round. You can find that on the Buffalo Plus
Friday,
channel.
We'll recap
Friday,
again
Saturday. Bills with 10 total picks heading in, 28th overall to start if they stay there. Yeah. All right. For Dan and Mike, I'm Jenna. Thank you for joining us. Please be sure to share this podcast if you enjoyed our content, and like, comment, and subscribe. How many are we at?
Just shy
Sorry,
of 31.
That's awesome. Wow, unison. All right, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time here on Buffalo Plus. Dan, don't break the equipment.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.